Now to a story you'll see only on 6. And believe us, no other local TV station would tackle this story. A controversial trends forecaster tells ABC 6 we are on the verge of a massive economic collapse.
I said the same thing when we spoke to him last year, and although some people believe we have avoided that collapse and are on the road to recovery, Gerald Celente definitely does not.
It did collapse. It collapsed in March of 2009. The world equity markets collapsed. What they did was they propped them up, and they propped them up with stimulus packages worldwide. The United States has lent, spent, and guaranteed $11 trillion to prop up this economy. So the collapse happened, but it hasn't crashed, and we're looking for the crash to come.
Gerald Celente says bailouts based on a too-big-to-fail mentality from the U.S. government are ridiculous. And now, because of all these government mergers, our country has crossed over to an economic and political dark side.
I want to make this clear. Capitalism is dead in America. And it's not socialism like all these people are yelling about. The merger of state and corporate powers, by definition, according to someone who knew the definition really well, is called fascism. And that's what Mussolini called it. Fascism has come to America.
In Celente's view, America was a true egalitarian nation when the country was about Main Street, mom and pops, and family farms, instead of big boxes, Wall Street, and factory farms. And now that we've gotten away from the good old days, it's not if the U.S. economy collapses, but when. He thinks it'll happen before 2012.
How long does the economy in America have?
The economy in America is also going to be affected by what's going on in the global economy. And we're very concerned about what's going on in Europe, particularly with Greece.
So you see Europe falling and then it trickled down to America? Is that how it...
Not only Europe is falling, we're looking at the Ukraine, we're looking at Latvia, Lithuania, Iceland, obviously, Ireland, Spain, Portugal. Portugal's next. Italy's on. France, UK. The UK has a budget deficit to GDP is approaching that of Greece.
So you're saying the stimulus that they propped up those countries, the economies there, can't sustain itself for much longer, and then eventually the weight of what? The debt, I would assume, is too much for those countries and the economies collapse?
Yes, they default on their debt. They're defaulting on sovereign debt. And we're concerned the same thing's going to happen in the United States at some point. You cannot keep taking on debt.
So is this definite? Are we doomed on a one-way ticket to economic Armageddon by 2012? No. Celente says it can turn around, but only through a dynamic change between now and 2012, like this country has never seen, through a groundbreaking, game-changing productive capacity from alternative energy.
And not wind, solar, geothermal, or biofuel, but something much greater than that, like a zero-point energy, charge clusters, even cold fusion, permanent magnets.
And on a more immediate level, taking pride in the U.S. and making an all-out effort to buy American.
America needs to make its own. You have a company in America, jeans, shoes, shirts, computers, cameras, and you stamp a real label on there, made in America. You think people will buy it? Of course they will. We don't have to buy from China.
So there is a glimmer of hope, but Celente is also predicting a bank holiday to stop a run on the banks, a 9/11 style attack on the U.S., and a U.S.-led global war sparked by an incident with Pakistan or Iran. So is this guy on the mark, or is he nuts? What do you think? In just a moment, Rhode Island's own leading economist weighs in on Mr. Celente's dire forecast. Stay with us for that part of the story as we continue with Clash of the Economists on ABC 6 News at 11. We are back in exactly 1 minute. As we continue with the story you'll see only on 6, tonight we take trends forecaster Gerald Celente's predictions of economic doom to Rhode Island's own expert, URI professor Dr. Len Ladaro. The professor gives us his view of our economic future, and he reacts to Celente's controversial and dire forecast.
We have an adjustment time to really deal with, and it's going to be tough, but I don't think it's going to be cataclysmic.
That's major difference of opinion number 1. A second difference, the bailouts of the too-big-to-fails. Gerald Celente says let them fail.
What too big to fail? There's no proof that they were too big to fail, so what, they failed.
Not so, says the professor.
That if we had done what he said, which is the classical economic solution in the 1930s, as we speak, we would be in a deepening global depression. I have no doubt whatsoever about that. So ironically, if we do what he had said, the cataclysm would already be here.
This isn't the way it's supposed to work.
As you heard, Celente says the wheels will come off the U.S. economy by 2012, an economic Armageddon.
2 years from now, which sounds like Nostradamus or something, but if we don't regulate meaningfully financial derivatives, and some of them already are really regulated, but if we don't really handle that, that really could, by itself, potentially cause a depression within 10 or 20 years. That I don't doubt.
Celente said capitalism is dead in America. Ladaro agrees. True capitalism is dead. We have morphed into what he calls a mixed economy. We have elements of socialism with social programs like welfare, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, etc. And we have capitalism in the markets. But the Celente comment that raised Ladaro's eyebrows the most
is called fascism. And that's what Mussolini called it.
To cite Mussolini as the model of what's going on is just ridiculous. I mean, what did he really know? When you think of great minds and people of substance, somehow he's rather far down on my list, let's put it that way.
Celente longs for an America that is long gone. Main Street, mom and pops, family farms, instead of big boxes, Wall Street, and factory farms. Also, the idea that if we start buying American again, things will be better for our country's economy.
In a lot of ways, they're almost kind of nostalgic that somehow if we can recreate a past world, everything will be better. We're already very, very global. You can't go back. People don't really value Buy America as much as I think he believes. It's sad, but that's the way the world is.
Where the two men really don't agree, the idea of a new groundbreaking productive capacity from alternative energy coming on board, saving the economy in 2 years.
By 2012, I don't see that. I wish that were the case, that somehow we could perfect batteries for cars tomorrow. That'd be wonderful. It's just not going to happen. And making that transition would be so catastrophic for industry and individuals. By itself, that could throw us way back into recession, into a very, very deep one.
The bottom line, Gerald Celente is extremely negative on the short-term prospects for the U.S. economy. Professor Ladaro?
I think the U.S. economy is in the elements of a self-sustaining recovery that began probably in July of 2009. So there are some negatives, and some of the negatives from Europe are going to come back at us. A number of banks really aren't lending that much, which makes things difficult. But there are a lot of indicators moving in the right direction. I think what he was saying was a wonderful example. If you wish for that, just pray you never get it.
Professor Ladaro wants one thing on the record. He says all bets are off if the U.S. suffers another 9/11 type attack. He says that changes everything, not only for the U.S., but also for the global economy.
Yeah, it certainly does. You know this is going to get a huge response.
I think you're right, Allison. Last time we did a story of Gerald Celente, it drew a huge response on our website. And after it ended up on YouTube, at last check earlier tonight, it's got nearly 250,000 views. Mr. Celente has a worldwide following with many people who take his forecasts as gospel. Many others just tune in to watch him because they enjoy his critical views of U.S. policy, and you heard most of them tonight. And we do want to mention, speaking of our website, tonight's story will be up on our website in just a matter of minutes. All you have to do is click to 6, abc6.com. It'll be right there on the homepage.